My dear friends, we're looking at the true stories of Genesis. My claim is that these stories are some of the truest stories in the Bible. They tell us things that are true about God, and they tell us things that are true about ourselves. This week we're looking at chapter 1 of Genesis, in the beginning, and so on. So what are the two truths to share? One about God, one about us. Well, the first thing to keep in mind is that the story in Genesis is by no means unique amongst ancient Near Eastern literature. There were many stories about the creation of the cosmos circulating at the time, as indeed there were many stories about a flood. And what is most interesting about the story of Genesis isn't that it's a creation story as such, but what it tells us about that story. If we think of the Babylonian creation myth, for example, called the Enuma Elish, the similarities and contrasts become quite apparent. In the Babylonian story, there is something of a violent psychodrama going on, within which the god Marduk battles the goddess Tiamat, kills her, and separates her into two parts, which become the waters above and the waters beneath. This description of the physical world is the same as in Genesis. But what's interesting in the Genesis account is not the division of the waters, but how that division comes about. It doesn't come about through conflict. Rather, in the Jewish and Christian tradition, God is seen as creating all things out of nothing. And what this essentially means is that our understanding of creation is peaceful, and it is one that enables peace. God has no rival in creation. There is no other God like the living God, and that means that God can be inclusive. If there are rival gods, then that rivalry is built into the creation and is therefore inescapable. So that's the first thing I'd want to say. The truth about God in Genesis chapter 1 is that God is the source of all things, everything, and that means that true peace is possible. And what about us? What is the truth about us that is revealed in chapter 1? Well, I shall tell you a mystery. We are made in the image of God. Several things follow from this really quite remarkable assertion. The first is the whole panoply of what we today call human rights. If we're made in the image of God, then we have an inherent dignity. Every human being has an inherent dignity. And that means that if you harm a human being, you're committing blasphemy. We're slowly becoming aware, perhaps we're slowly remembering, that those things which we most value in our society cannot be separated from their Christian roots, and here is one of the most important of them. Yet it goes on, for not only are we made in the image of God, but the juxtaposition of male and female is the image. In other words, it's the relationship, not the solitary individual, that truly reflects the image of God, which means that relationship is built into the inherent essence of God himself. And this is what we end up describing as the Trinity, that God is Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. It all comes back to this doctrine of creation. It all goes back to the beginning. So let's press on with our conversation.